7:32 and a half is our time here on Sky 99.5 FM. We continue with the news making, and this is second hour of the Breakfast Roundtable for today, Tuesday, the 5th of September, 2017. And we're turning our attention now and the spotlight onto the hunt for a new police commissioner and a deputy police commissioner. That began yesterday. The request for applications was opened yesterday, and applications should be closing off by the 29th of September. On the line with us is member of the Police Service Commission, Martin George. Good morning to you, Martin George.
Morning, Mr.
Hi, good morning to you, Jessamy. Good morning, Edison, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Thanks for giving us some time this morning, Martin George. And
it's always a pleasure, Jessamy.
And we're not going to, we just want to get a sense, the application period, you'll be getting the applications coming in during this month. And then once the applications are in, is there a time limit on how long it will take to wade through those applications and weed out the best options? And then what happens after that? What sort of timeline do we have to actually get someone hired as the next police commissioner and the next deputy police commissioner?
Well, Jessamy, as you would appreciate, and I think all of Trinidad and Tobago would understand, this is going to be a volume-dependent type of exercise. In other words, at this point, no one can predict or say with any certainty how many applications we would receive. The point is, this is open to all nationals of Trinidad and Tobago, whether locally resident or whether foreign-based. So in other words, you could have applications coming from all over the world. There are so many steps and layers to the process that it is utterly impossible to predict with certainty a time frame. While we've set out a work plan and a schedule with the firm, that we are hoping would be realistic, it is all theoretical at this stage based on the number of responses we get, because given the criteria set out in the legislation, it has, opened the field so that, persons can basically throw their hats in the ring and, make a try for, the jobs.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking that, but you must have some timeline in mind, whether it's going to be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, something like that.
Well, certainly, Jessamy, we do have a timeline in mind, and at this point it would remain there because it would be, it wouldn't be wise at this point to put out numbers, because the thing is you raise expectations and then persons want to, basically use that as a reference point at all times. So therefore, it really wouldn't be prudent to, throw out numbers in that sense. But with the firm, we have worked out what we hope to be a realistic schedule. But as I say, it depends on a whole number of things, because you have things like the security vetting, So if you have lots of foreign residents, nationals of Trinidad and Tobago who are foreign residents, so in other words, you would now need to get the security vetting from wherever they reside. So therefore we'd have to find out about their past, their history. That would now be dependent upon how fast those agencies respond. Those foreign agencies respond in terms of providing the information to say, well, okay, look, yes, during their time, if they lived here for 10 years, they had no incidents, nothing, no reports of, domestic violence, nothing, that kind of thing. So yes, those things are things entirely outside the control of ourselves and the firm that is assisting us with this exercise. So therefore, that's why I'm saying that as much as I know there's great anxiety in the nation to, have some specific time frame, it is, I think, a bit imprudent to seek to, try to set that kind of fixed deadline at this stage.
I understand the point that you're making. All right. So in terms of what is our ideal police commissioner and our ideal deputy police commissioner, what should we be looking for?
Well, the thing is, first of all, we're guided by the legislation and the criteria set out by the legislation. So you must meet that basic, set of, parameters that we have there. And thereafter, what you're looking for is someone who, I guess, would basically show the type of leadership skills that, would be able to take the TTPS into the 21st century, right? So therefore, you want persons who would be able to have some kind of clear, credible plan in terms of crime reduction, in terms of improving the safety and security and the overall objectives, consistent with, your strategic plan for improvement of the nation's safety and security network.
Are you saying, Mr. George, that there is a firm assisting in this exercise? This firm, is it a local firm, an international firm? And why is there need for such assistance?
Well, the legislation, we're guided by the legislation in this regard. The legislation allows for that. So we've complied with the requirements of the legislation.
So essentially, what would be the role of this firm? Is it simply a matter to collect and collate the replies and so on, or the applications and that kind of thing?
All right, okay. The process, it's a very involved process. As I've said before, and I will say again, it is more difficult to appoint a commissioner of police in Trinidad and Tobago than it is to appoint a chief justice, a prime minister, or a president. Because we have, for instance, the assessment centers. This is where the applicants will be put into small groups. They will have to do group exercises. They will have to show their ability to work well with others, their ability to draw on the strengths of others and to harness those strengths to ensure that you get a positive result. You will look to see what are the group dynamics. Is it that, their personalities are not able to, get along with others? Is it that they clash with people repeatedly, that kind of thing? Then you have the psychometric testing, right? Then you also have the, as I mentioned earlier, the security vetting. You have the medical and health vetting. So it's a multi-layered process. In fact, quite frankly, when I, was looking at the rigor of this process, I was of the view that, respectfully, maybe Trinidad and Tobago should consider implementing this as a litmus test for our politicians. Maybe if we did this, we would end up with less problems in the parliament if we put them through this type of screening and vetting.
But there must be some kind of ceiling, Mr. George, as to how many applications you would accept. Suppose you have 100 applicants. Would you all allow it to go to that extent?
Well, the point is, how could we put a ceiling on it realistically? In the sense that once you do that, then the persons who are beyond that, then they automatically denied. So that's why your only limit would be the time frame within which you can submit your information. So once your information is submitted within that time frame, then of course your preliminary screening would be based on the initial criteria set out in the legislation, and then now you go to a more detailed process. But throughout the entire selection scenario, the commission retains entire control. So in other words, everything comes back to the commission. We then now give our overview, and we now give our detailed analysis and approval before you move on to the next step.
So the initial screening is not limited to the paper applications and returns. You also have to interview these individuals personally.
Well, as I said, it's a multi-layered process. It is a multi-layered process, which would also involve interviews.
Oh mercy! This is you're looking way into the future, Mr. George.
Well, Edison, the process is set out by the legislation. We could only be guided by what is there, and which is why we've said repeatedly, and I think it's a point that has been raised even in the Parliament, that there is need for legislative change, because there is no need for this process to be as overly cumbersome and convoluted as it is. It certainly must be that there's a better and more expeditious way to do it, but unfortunately, once you have legislative parameters, you have to be constrained by those.
So who would make the final selection?
Well, it's the commission.
The commission.
In terms of the shortlist that is then now sent forward and the recommendation, yes, that's our thing, and then of course, according to the law, it then goes to the Parliament.
The Cabinet has any role in this at all?
It goes to the Parliament, not the Cabinet, the Parliament.
In terms of the going through with this process, what sort of feedback have you been getting? Are people saying maybe all we need to do is just confirm the guy who's in office right now? This is somebody that we know, so on and so forth. Why should we go and look for someone new? Are you hearing any of that kind of chatter?
Well, you hear lots of things, but at the end of the day, just to me, we can't be guided by what we hear in terms of, people voicing their opinions on the street. We have to be guided by what the law requires and what the legislation mandates. So, I mean, what we would certainly love to see is if ultimately there is draft legislation to actually revamp the entire process and make it much simpler and straightforward, because it really is overly cumbersome and burdensome at this time, but that's what we have to work with.
Now, Martin George, as this process began yesterday, something very interesting happened. We had a foreign dignitary expressing concern about what's happening with the crime situation in this country.
And a former foreign high commissioner.
And a former high commissioner.
And former, yes. And that
in
was
addition
quite
to that,
because they normally tend to steer very clear of any such issues. So I think it shows the level of concern, and I think the murder of Miss Broadbridge, has really shaken people a lot.
And then we find out about this other lady who they found yesterday in Chaguanas.
Yes, that's right, 75 years old. I mean, at the end of the day, Jessime, what it tells you, and this is something that I have said repeatedly, and I think you all both support me on this. It doesn't matter when you hear the hierarchy of the TTPS trotting out statistics to try to tell you statistically crime is down, etc. What matters is what the people feel in terms of, do you feel safe? Do you feel comfortable to go out at night? Do you feel comfortable in your homes? And once people are not feeling that, then you have not satisfied your requirement. And that's what I keep saying. So, it always galls me when I see the automatic response appears to be, the reversion to statistics. And if you look at policing theory and management worldwide, it is clear that police services all over the world, they hide behind statistics, and it's something that the civilian oversight bodies always have to be very, very wary of and very careful to analyze and dissect and say, well, hey, listen, at the end of the day, you may present your statistics in this way by comparing this particular year to that particular year. But when you look at the trend overall, if it is that persons are not feeling that sense of safety and security, then clearly you have not done your job properly yet. So whatever incremental gains you may have made, it doesn't warrant you, sitting back and, patting yourself on the back and, showering yourself with Gatorade, and thinking you are this great hero. The point is there's still a whole lot of work to be done. And the thing is, it has to be a multifaceted and multi-pronged approach. While we of course need more boots on the ground in terms of physical presence of officers, we also have to attack in terms of, reaching the psyche and the minds of persons, because you ask yourself, how could someone, feel comfortable to slit the throat of an 80-year-old woman? What type of mindset must you have? Because clearly this is a frail old woman. From what I understand, she's a cancer patient. So she could not put up any physical fight or resistance to you. So what would be your motivation? Why would you want to do that? It's something that, you could never, ever come to terms with.
This morning, we wake up to the news of a double murder in St. Mary's Village. One of the victims is a soldier. So a military officer also falling prey to the murder scourge. No one is safe. This is an able-bodied person.
That's the point. And that's where it really scares the bejesus out of you, because you tell yourself, you wonder, is there anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago that you could truly say is safe? I mean, I have had discussions with the officials in Tobago, and I've said, listen, we need to, if nothing else, at least try to ensure that Tobago start with Tobago division, and let's ensure that we try to, pull back Tobago so that you say, well, okay, yes, there's at least one place you could say that is relatively safe, because you despair if you try to look at the whole scenario of Trinidad and Tobago, you will think, well, it's impossible. So I say, look, maybe we have to start with one division at a time. And I think Tobago is the best place for the police service to start.
You know, there's a phrase, horses for courses, Mr. George. Do you think in the vetting process, looking for a commissioner and a deputy commissioner, those individuals who may seem more hardline, perhaps they may not be let's say, in terms of academically qualified as somebody else, but their history says they are very hardline, as the case might be, may get a leg up than other people who may not seem to be that diligent in vetting criminals and destroying the criminal element.
Well, unfortunately, the legislation does set out certain prerequisites for education, qualifications, and criteria, which must be satisfied ab initio. So, the days of, saying, well, look, you're a superhero law enforcement officer on the ground, but you don't have that level of educational skill to back it up. Unfortunately, I think in Trinidad and Tobago, we could say that those days are gone, because the prerequisites as set out in the legislation require, you're talking university level education kind of thing. So that's the present scenario. And I think, Edison, when one looks at it in terms of global trends, it is a necessary thing, because you have to...
I'm not discounting it at all. I'm not discounting
right, great. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The reality, though, is that the world of crime now is very different from the way it was even 5 years ago.
It's becoming more sophisticated. Criminals are becoming much more sophisticated in their approaches. When you think of things like cybercrime, and phishing scams, to get people's credit cards information, identity theft, if you don't have a certain, basic level of education and skill, then you would not even be able to begin to cope with these people. So therefore, you must have that, as a prerequisite.
Oh my goodness! All right. I'm just thinking, though, we had, when he was here as a diplomat here for the U.S. government, many people were thinking maybe
UK.
No, I'm speaking of the former U.S. ambassador.
Who's that?
Oh my gosh!
Which one?
The two persons who
the most recent. The most recent
who commented yesterday are both from
British,
the UK.
yes, but I'm just saying that there were some people who felt that the former U.S. ambassador who was here recently, and my mind is drawing a blank now. Estrada, that's right, Ambassador Estrada. Because of his military background and so on and so forth, people felt, maybe he should become our next top cop or national security minister or something like that. I mean, do we desire someone with a military background? Should we be looking that way? Do we want someone who is a fantastic manager? Do we want someone who is, very technology savvy and understands how things are functioning now and can do, that kind of data analysis and sifting and foresighting and projecting and come up with plans based on that foresighting to deal with the crime situation? Who do we want? Who do we want?
Well, the thing is, the range of skills that would be required at Jessime, as you quite rightly pointed out, would have expanded over time because of the evolving nature of crime and criminality. So therefore, you can't have someone who is just unidimensional. So therefore, you have to be able to leverage a vast array of skills. You may not possess all of them within yourself, but you must be able to actually use and interact with those, skill sets to be able to ensure that at the end of the day, you get the result for the organization that you want. The best managers are not persons who know how to do everything in terms of the nuts and bolts of their company's operation, but they know how to get the best people to get it done so that you produce the result that is desired. So that's why management skill would be definitely a major part of what you want, because it's a matter of harnessing the talent and the ability to ensure that, look, you chart a course that leads Trinidad and Tobago to a fair level of safety and security, because I think that's all the people in the streets are asking fairness. That's all the ordinary citizen wants. They want to know that, look, you're coming home after a hard day's work. You stop to open your gate. Nobody's hiding in the bushes there to jump you and attack you, to rob you, rape you, steal your car, burn down your house, that kind of thing. That's all people are asking for. And quite frankly, I think it's a basic human right. It's something that we are all entitled to, and that's why you elect a government. That's why you have your politicians in place, so that they can now put systems together so that you ensure that citizens have access to this level of safety and security. So,
I'm wondering, Mr. George,
it's not rocket science that we're looking at here.
Because of the experiences we had with Gibbs and Iwatsky, the foreigners, the Canadians and so on, they did not get much kind of cooperation, even from the higher level police officers in Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm wondering, in vetting the applicants and so on, if this will come into play at all, that, the foreigners, white, that they may not get the kind of support they need from the different levels of police officers in the country.
Well, the thing is, Edison, the legislation has been changed. So the thing is, we are limited now to nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. The law actually has been changed, and it says you must be a national of Trinidad and Tobago. You could be foreign residents. So in other words, you could have someone from Switzerland, London, Germany, who has worked within law enforcement in those areas, who wishes to now return back to Trinidad and Tobago and wishes to apply. So you could be foreign-based, but your fundamental criteria is that you must be a national of Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that scenario has been eliminated by the change in the law. All right, Edison.
Yes, whoever gets you have to go.
To run, yes.
Okay,
it's
sure.
been a pleasure chatting with you guys as always, and I look forward to us continuing these type of healthy discourses so that we raise the level of conversation in the country, so that we are able to actually have discussions that can lead to solutions for the nation.
All right, and thank you very much, Martin George.
Always a pleasure.
That was a member of the Police Service Commission and Senior Attorney at Law, Martin George, speaking with us on the Breakfast Round Table. Just want to flag one of the stories, crime stories that everyone is talking about today. 76-year-old Ramdevi Singh found in a pool of blood by her family yesterday.
The home Ramdevi Singh shared with her husband for the past 50 years is where he would find her lifeless body. The 76-year-old was discovered in a pool of blood this morning, her body nude and throat slit.
There were some break-ins before, a couple of years ago, where the burglar proof on the house was reinforced. So we thought, at least it was safe and secured now.
According to San Vishnu, his sister lived quietly at her Imam Shah home in Shagwanas, where she cared for her husband Martin Singh, who suffered several strokes. He says the elderly man used to sleep on the ground floor and only recently regained mobility to move upstairs, where they slept in separate bedrooms.
The husband came to the gate and flagged down an insect vector vehicle, and they are the ones who stopped and called the police.
Police say Singh's husband also suffered minor injuries and was taken to the Shagwanas Health Facility for treatment. While details are still sketchy, officers could find no signs of forced entry. Several neighbors recalled hearing screams around 3:30 a.m. but didn't report it. As far as relatives know, Ramdevi spoke with a niece on the phone around 8:30 last evening.
They probably felt that they're vulnerable. The husband has a stroke. He's not mobile. She is the only one, is a woman. So probably we took a chance.
Businessman Dipchand Prasad, owner of Passage to Asia, says he knew Ramdevi personally.
This lady is a quiet lady. The whole family, even the Dulip Singhs is the family also. And these people is nice people in Shagwanas. Everybody know these people. And for this thing kind of thing to come happen, a lady in she's 70s, she's about 75 years. And for this thing to come happen is shocking, real shocking and disturbing.
He says crime has slowed business in the Shagwanas community and more must be done. Singh's brother says 2 days ago he was lamenting the death of ex-curator Dr. Claire Broadbridge. Today, it's his sister.
Here we are again with another incident similar to what took place in St. Anne's. And it appears that crime has gone, beyond correction.
Rhea Rambly, CNC3.
Whoever is the next top cop and the next deputy top cop, they are going to have a real fight on their hands. We've got news up next, folks. Keep it here on Sky.
Don't touch a button. We'll be right back with more on Sky 99.5 FM.